7.3. Got some introduction and some info, and then I have Thursday and Friday designed as work periods, just helping y'all individually as I need to, letting you guys kind of experiment, do some type of stuff. 7.3 focuses on using negative and positive space, as well as the concept of balance. Finding balance between those two things is a very kind of key graphic design habit to get into, to kind of look for the way that things just have a natural balance to them. You guys have seen this already in a way. It just maybe you haven't had the words for it or the way to describe it quite yet. So I forgot to attach something to your thread, which I'm going to pull over right now. Okay, so 7.3 is your guys' opportunity to create your own custom app icon. You do have to choose from one of these options, which I will get into here in a second. But before we do that, I want to, this is what you're working on, due Friday, deadline of June 7th. But before we get into that, I want to give you a little demo of some of the key kind of aspects of balance that are the easiest to start understanding and applying to your work. So I'm going to boot up Illustrator here real quick. The two main types of balance, you've heard these words before, maybe not in this context, are symmetrical and asymmetrical. If you think about it like they are on a scale, like you would imagine the old-timey scale with the literally called balance, right? The old-timey scale with the stuff on one side, and then the two little buckets, right? It's got a cool little situation going on here, right? Symmetrical and asymmetrical balance is going to behave in a very similar way. Symmetrical, and then we'll just pull this off to the side, throw a little A on there. These are going to be your two easiest ways to achieve balance and to communicate your idea for your app icon, which will line up with one of these options, not that one, this one of these 7 options that you will choose. So symmetrical balance is exactly like the name entails. If you've heard the word symmetrical before, it's going to be an equal amount on both sides. So if I just set this to none real quick, we imagine this is our fun little app icon. Let's round off the edges so it's a little bit easier to, a little bit lighter on the eyes. Symmetry can be achieved in 2 kind of key ways, and that's going to be on your x-axis or your y-axis. Most commonly, actually, let me align these real quick so that they are directly in the center. I think that's all of them selected. Gonna go to my window, align, do some horizontal centering and a little vertical centering. So we get a nice 4 quadrants to work with. These 4 quadrants, or 2, if you depend, if we set this to, we have just a x-axis or a y-axis, whatever. I typically do my designing on the symmetrical y-axis because it reads like a book, a little bit more left to right, a little bit more used to our English eye, or at least our left to right reading eye. This makes things a little bit easier to understand. So symmetrical is exactly what it sounds like in the way that it has an equal balance of the different parts across both the sides. So if I have some squares here, say I have some polygons here, maybe a little too large. Actually, larger is going to have a better demo. Okay, even though this is just kind of a ugly example without too much fun with one another. Let's align those on the horizontal. Let's align these 2 on the vertical. Just get everything nice and aligned here on the vertical as well there. Okay, so it's not perfect, but you can understand how the weight is equally balanced on each half of our app icon or our design, whether that's a poster, an album cover, playlist art, a t-shirt. You're going to have some level of symmetrical balance going on inside of your workspace here. Symmetrical typically is going to communicate the idea and the principles of equality. Since everything is kind of on the same plane, it's going to achieve just the word of balanced and like easy to understand. Some philosophies will like to describe symmetry as pure, but that can get into some hairy situations where it puts symmetrical above asymmetrical in a way that there's good and bad. There's not really a lot of room for that you need to be worried about, but it is something that you want to keep in mind, that symmetry is typically considered pure, balanced, right? A lot of words that mean equal or kind of all across the board, 100% understanding. I'm actually going to keep those on there. So these are your typical keywords for a symmetrical sort of layout. And while you guys are looking at your app icons that you're designing, as well as the app icons that you look at when you click on them, try to see if you can tell if it's symmetrical or asymmetrical. Just start looking for these kind of things in the world. You will be surprised at how much design comes out when you start looking for it. On the contrary, asymmetrical is exactly what it sounds like, with an uneven distribution of things in order to draw the viewer's eye in a specific direction. So if we stick with the polygon example, let's pretend we have the same amount of stuff, maybe a little bit different sized. Do something like this, right? And then we'll get some polygon or some rectangles. I'm doing a couple different things by like keeping one half stroke and one not here. But if we keep it all on that x-axis side, it's the same amount of content communicated in a totally different way. By taking advantage of these symmetrical lines, kind of like your quadrants on a graph, you're able to direct your viewer's eye to exactly what they're looking for. So like, for example, if we were to look at, let me do some adjustments real quick. If we were to look at this app icon, imagine it's an app for, I don't know, dice rolling or something. It's a dice icon, okay? What do you notice first? Just shout it out. The hexagon, what about the hexagon? Do you notice anything different based on one or the other? Anything crazy? Since there's two hexagons or a hexagon per half, even though they're offset asymmetrical on the x-axis, we turn the stroke back on this one. Even though they're asymmetrical on the x-axis, they're actually pretty close. There's the same amount of content happening on both sides. So it's not clear which side you're supposed to really look at. And that's okay. You can communicate that equality, balance, and pureness from your design. Whereas if we look at over here, what do you notice about your eyes when you look at this? What about the design are you noticing happen when you look at the asymmetrical version? Kind of ignore the rest of it, right? That's your negative space. That's the thing that I've been having you guys kind of try looking at throughout this unit 7, okay? Here's your positive space. This is occupied something. This is your focal point. This is what you want your user to look at. Whereas the rest just provides context. It provides breathing room. It provides a lot of kind of brain psychology terms that I don't fully understand. Ms. Corbin could probably be a little bit more helpful in that department. But there is an aspect of your eye getting drawn to where there's content, kind of like magnetism, or kind of like if we get into astronomy, it pulls gravity of your eyes, right? Bear with me on this for a second. This is how you can use balance in your design to tell your viewer what to look at, okay? Your viewers aren't stupid, but sometimes they need a little bit of help, okay? Especially when your client wants something specific, they want to show some type of relationship. Use these two types of balance, these two types of arrangements. Let me make some keywords for asymmetrical. It's typically used for emphasis. It's typically used for focus, but sometimes can be interpreted a little bit more chaotically or impure. Maybe not trustworthy is what some people might say, but everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Emphasis and focus are going to be your two big words for what asymmetrical balance is trying to achieve here. So the reason that I show you guys this is so that when you're designing your custom app icons for 7.3, you can start to see how that might work in your sort of space and how you want to draw your attention to each of these different aspects. So your job is to choose one of the following challenge options to complete. I have provided an app icon template that you will need to change the name of because it just has the basic canvas name. It's already done for you, but you will need to put yours in so I don't get a million your name, P number, whatever. Okay. Your job is to pick one of these options, like an app icon for a food delivery service that captures the essence of delicious cuisine and convenience. Think back all the way to Unit 2, right? With the logos that we design. Everything you do in design is going to communicate something whether you mean it to or not, okay? So the things that you choose to include in your logo and the way that you choose to balance those things in your logo are going to be communicating things that maybe you don't exactly mean. That's okay. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just something to be aware of, that communication happens all the time in graphic design. So you have to choose one of these options, and it has to integrate everything that the option is asking for. Some of them have notes, like option 1 says combine elements of food and delivery. Okay, think back to logos, think back to messaging. How do you communicate food is a question you ask yourself. You could sketch it out as well. I'm not requiring you turn them in, but it is a useful tool to use in graphic design, right? How do you communicate food? How do you communicate delivery? How do you communicate convenience? You can use the apps that do those things already, see what they do, and put your own spin on it, right? You can think about what food means to you and what delivery means to you, and include those two things using asymmetrical or symmetrical balance to communicate to your user what this app does. And as we get towards the end, we're kind of in the graphic design swing. You guys have a lot of tools and a lot of concepts that we've covered. I'm going to step away a little bit more. I'll help you guys with your individual questions, but more so than not in the graphic design world, you're given a task and you're expected to complete it. How you approach it is up to you. Just using the science that comes with graphic design, let those influence your choices. So that being said, what you actually need to do today is kind of start thinking about how you want to communicate these options, download the app icon template, and just kind of start throwing some spaghetti at the wall. See what type of spaghetti hangs out, stick with that spaghetti, okay? Leave the rest on the ground. Says deliverables here should have some type of communication in this realm, so it should be simplistic and functional or have a modern and clean aesthetic. You want to use positive and negative space as much as you can, like you can see on the balance example here. The rubric, each one has a representative of its chosen app, so your option should reflect the one that's provided on Canvas. It should balance simplicity with the necessary complexity, some things like this. Clean and neat, using shape builders, pen tools, stuff that we've covered so far. And your design is original, should not be traced from an existing artwork unless it is from Unsplash or Pexels. You can use those as references. Does this make sense? What I'm asking of y'all. I'm assuming since there's no questions now, you will ask me either later or you can figure it out by yourself. I'm cool with both. But I'll let you guys get to work on this. You have a provided template. If you want to do a whole different set of icons with like dark modes and stuff, you can, but there's a template provided that you can start working with. You have the rest of today, all of Thursday, all of Friday to turn these in. So you should not be turning them in at the end of the period. Okay. Finish something and then be critical of it. Come at it with new eyes tomorrow and see what you can change, what minor adjustments you could make, whatever. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up here. Otherwise I'll keep yakking all day. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can always Canvas message me. I'll be wandering. Look at the apps you use every day, but look at them more seriously, like a scientist would, instead of just clicking on them. See what they do, copy what they do. A lot of graphic design is stealing, right? We figured out one way to do it and it works well a lot of the time. So you can use those same strategies that you find in your own use cases on your own work. Okay, so I'll wrap this up. We'll go off the air. The rest of this time is yours. Please use it wisely and come on Thursday and Friday prepared to work on these. Thank you guys for listening.